Doesn't want this to be an example of how procrastination doesn't pay off. He also has yet to faint in his first in any of his speeches. Please welcome Joe.
Okay, we're all here to learn to be teachers, but how can we be good teachers if we don't know how people first learn? We may all have a vague idea on how we learn, but imagine if we could get right to the exact science of how people learn. Imagine how much more powerful we could be to really drive ideas into their heads and have them remember them for a long time. Well, it would be convenient if we could just dive into our heads and see how those memory gears work, but it's not that easy. Luckily, though, there's scientists that are doing this grudge work for you. One of these scientists is John Medina. He's an author of a book called Brain Rules. He spent many years studying how the brain works, and he's developed a teaching system for his students that allows them to remember and understand his ideas over a long period of time, which has also won him the Teacher of the Award at his university. This system, well, that's the system. I want to give you a quick overview of that system today. So that system, it comprised of 3 different principles. The first principle is to excite emotion. The second principle is to repeat, repeat, repeat. The third principle is to give the gist first. I'll go into these more in a second. He breaks it into a 10-minute section, and I'll tell you why a little bit later. The first minute is spent just giving this gist, this overall idea, which is the third principle. The next 9 minutes, he spends giving details, further details, and tying them all back to key points by repeating them over and over again. And then at the 10-minute mark, he does something special. He calls this buying the next 10 minutes. He does this because he's found that studies show that students about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes, stop paying attention altogether. So, what he does is at that 10 minutes, he realizes that he has to bribe them and buy that next 10 minutes from them. He does this by making emotionally exciting stories, jokes, interesting facts that really captivate them and pull them away from that fire hose of information for just a second. So, not any story will do. You've got to tie back into the main ideas and really show what's happened just barely, or tie into the future reference, or people might think you're just wasting their time. So, you want your stories to be very emotionally involving and intriguing. Memorable is the idea. So when they remember your story, they'll remember your lesson. So a good example of this, I would say, is, Bill's not here, but the credit card and the cucumber. Do you remember that main idea, that story? It really encapsulates that. And you want things like this, that it really encompasses your main idea there. So let's go back into the 3 principles and how they tie more to a system. The first principle is to excite emotion. This one's probably obvious to you all. You remember how all those exciting or emotional times in your life, your exciting happiness and all these things, but day-to-day dull, drearing things, just you don't remember that much. Emotion is studied, as shown by all studies, that is key to remembering things. The second is to repeat, repeat, repeat. Now, repeating things, this is done within the 9 minutes of of his teaching system. He'll pick a key principle and he'll repeat it over and over again and tie everything back to it. Because it's likely that everyone's going to forget everything besides what you repeat or make emotionally involving. So you want to find something, choose something that if someone could take one thing away from your speech, what would it be? And make sure you tie everything back to that and repeat it. Now the third thing is giving the gist or the general outline of your speech first or whatever you're teaching. Because when you give that outline, the studies show that students, their understanding goes up a whopping 40% just by the fact that you give a general idea first before giving them the information. It's just how our brains work. It works as a hierarchical system, said that right? Where you start with a general idea, and then it'll tie the details to it. So if you don't present them with that main block first, then they don't have things to tie to it as they go. So if you help people know where you're going before you go there, they'll be a lot less confused. So all together now, you've got giving the general idea first, which would be that first minute. We found it's crucial that he juices out that 40% more understanding by giving that 10% of time, or the first minute, the general overview. And then the next 9 minutes spends linking it back with stories and ideas and really getting those details back to that main idea. And then in the 10 minutes, giving some kind of story, relaxing the information, and tying some memorable story to tie it all in. And this has worked very well for him. He's won the teacher award. And there's many more things. I'd encourage you all to look into how the brain actually works, and you can find great ways to teach people. So thank you for your time.